but maybe I'm the only one that finds it funny. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird like that, to be honest with you. But holy smokes, man! What a day it's been, or what a day it's going to be. Uh, I guess the best way to set it up is that we've got a back to back right now with both with all the different emotions that a human being can feel from both different sides of that coin and spectrum, whatever you want to call it. Uh, my brother, welcome aboard. How you feeling today, man?
Man, feels great to be. I mean, I'm not a Spaniard by, by nationality, but by deep blood, they conquered Mexico, so in a way it feels nice to have won this battle with the French. It was not an easy game. But as I predicted before, Luis de la Fuente stuck to his guns, and I mean, he played his cards right, made the right lineup changes from the first game from Cape Verde all the way to now. And I mean, he's now what, 3-0 versus in major competitions versus Didier. And so it feels good. I don't know, in our group chat when Fidel says crazy game, I don't know why that sounds so crazy to him. It didn't sound crazy to me. This was expected. I think had anyone listened to me and your conversations before, I mean, we could safely say that Spain were just the better team on the pitch, but on paper, I mean, France is the more loaded team. But when we spoke about this months ago, and you first chose Spain over France to win it all, I questioned it when you changed your mind with that France propaganda from Malik. But I mean, come now to real life, months
Yeah,
later
you know that
when it
I'm not a
happened.
religious dude. Yeah, that's like a coming to Jesus moment, man. Where I mean, that's one of those things where it's like, and I'm glad you bring that up. To be honest with you, because the whole time that I was sitting there watching it, I mean, I have no problem admitting this. It sometimes, I can only speak on my own behalf, but like I drive myself crazy. Like especially when it comes to sports, because I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you're never gonna get them all right. But it's like sometimes it's like when you take an exam,
Yeah.
when you're growing up, you take an exam and like, it's whatever question and you know the answer, but you get it wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
it's like you sometimes you second guess yourself or like yeah, I don't necessarily regret even flipping to France. I think, yeah, they were the more talented team, but like, again, the caveat, like you said, it's on the record. What I said a couple of months ago, originally, that was the first conversation that we had about the World Cup, and you asked me that question, gun to the head, and I remember the conversation where you and I both, like you said, it was in a big game, in big moments, with that, we've talked about it even as recently as the last time you were on here. Like sometimes we overestimate and underestimate the impact of coaching. And like today was one of those things where it's a perfect example of tactical masterclass on one end, and then on the other side, like there was such a stark difference in the tactical implementation of how that game was played, that as a neutral, watching that, I was like, damn. When we had that conversation, I was thinking about that conversation we had 3 months ago. The whole time I was watching, I was like, damn, uh, you never know how it's going to play out. And the way that it played out, the Ryan of 3 months ago was correct, and the Ryan of 3 days ago and 3 hours ago, that Ryan was wrong. So it's fascinating how you look at it, and that I don't know, but I mean, holy smokes, man. I mean, you mentioned the managerial piece, right? Like De La Fuente. I mean, we were talking about this just now before we came on here. Like, you get like some of these guys, like, on Spain, and you look at the record and it's like, oh, these guys have never lost playing for Spain. Like, and you mentioned Cape Verde. That's the only, that's the only time they haven't beat anybody, and they still didn't lose. They've given up what, one goal all tournament. I mean, you just gotta tip your cap, dude. I feel like you gotta take a victory lap more than anything, man. Like,
I mean, look,
You know? Yeah.
it it's just Spain coming into it. Getting this feeling. I'll say this before Argentina and England preview. I'm more confident about Spain beating France, and I'm more confident about Argentina beating England. Just because I think Spain, and I'm not saying France doesn't know their identity, but Spain just holds you to death with possession. The way I look at it is that they're Mexico, but with much better talented players because it's death by possession. And if they give the ball up, they're back to quick. They're quick on their feet and they'll get it right back. And a prime example of it was Rodri today. I mean, gosh, this guy looked like 2023, 2024 Ballon d'Or winner. He seemed to be everywhere, and when he wasn't, he picked the right passes, or he was one step ahead of the other midfielders where they were trying to pick a through ball through to Bradley or to Killian or to Usman, and he would always just pick it out, or he would have like a diving header or a slide tackle that just it was always on point. I was like, wow, this is why he won the Ballon d'Or back then, and I'm glad to
Yeah.
see him, fully fit and thriving in this tournament. I mean,
Yeah. I
I
mean, he was
think
the best player on the pitch.
easily, man. I mean, he was just everywhere. He was the French
Mhm.
midfield worst nightmare. He was
You know,
there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
him, and then Fabian Ruiz. I think when as the starting lineup came out and Pedro was bench and you guys said like you guys were in shock, and for me I was like, you know what, I'm not
No, yeah, I
surprised.
mean, they did it before. I don't think it was a surprise. I think, yeah, you see, like even at keeper, with Unai Simon, like it works.
Yeah,
You know, they, it was a tactical masterclass, like you said. Spain know who they are, and they don't really care if it's like I think to be honest with you, it's one of those things where I think that when Lamine was talking the other day, and sometimes you don't get a whole lot in these press conferences, and sometimes you do, and I think you could tell by the level of confidence that it was like, you know what, like a lot of people are kind of like disrespecting us because it doesn't look pretty, but they don't realize that like teams respect us so much that there's only one way for them to play us to try to beat us. And now that we're playing France, we're on a level playing field where it's like we feel confident that we can kind of open it up a little bit and do some things that we haven't been able to do against other teams because these other teams are, trying to do everything that they can to hang on as long as possible, like Belgium, Portugal.
yeah, they're
You know?
gonna park the bus like Cape Verde
Exactly.
did.
And
Yeah, and
yeah,
and it
and
it makes it a lot tougher to get those scoring opportunities, and that's why when you do have those, you have to finish them each time. I mean,
yeah,
God, like I mean, yeah, the scoreline was only 2-0, but to be honest, it it could have been 4-0 because I think Upamecano made
yeah.
a nice block on who would it I think it or I can never pronounce his name.
Oh,
Or
yeah, it's about
Isabel. Yeah.
Mikel O, baby.
Yeah, let's just say Mikel O.
Yeah,
He made a great block on it,
Mikel O, baby.
and then honestly, I mean, if Lamine is off, or I mean, if he steps in towards 1 inch off, I mean, he scores. I mean, it was called offside, but I mean, he was only off by like an inch or so. So
Yeah.
it was just pure dominance. And you know who another player that I've doubted, ever since I've seen him play that stepped up big was Marco Correa. This guy was also
Yeah,
everywhere. He was fast. He was running down the wing. He was chasing everyone down. He himself made a couple good blocks or good interceptions that maybe
yeah,
would have been more dangerous for France had they gotten those opportunities. So I mean, credit
yeah.
to Luis de la Fuente. I mean, he played his
Oh,
cards
yeah.
right. Everyone ran back and played defense. Maybe the one exception would be Lamine because he's still, not 100%. But there'd be times where he'd intercept the ball or two, or like, he still tracks back. Um, yeah, it's just the tacticians and everyone, people that don't watch Spain, are shocked by this. But I know me and you watch Spain and we watch La Liga very closely and Premier League, but I'm not shocked by this. I don't know why the world is. They've beaten France the last 2 times, so I don't know why this is shocking. This is
Yeah, I think,
expected.
yeah, I think, what, man, I think it's one of those things where, I know Malik talked about it before the match from his perspective, and one of the things he said is that, you can't really put too much stock in either of those two matches, and I think I agree actually with that. I think today was just one of those things where it's like, it's almost like a fool me once, fool me twice, fool me three times sort of deal. Where it's like the first two times, you think, okay, maybe, different competition, different time, blah, 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 blah. But you know what?
Same
Like it
manager.
almost, it's like, it's like in every sport, dude. There are certain teams that are probably the best team and the most talented, but the most talented teams don't always win. Like, and it comes down a lot of times to coaching, managerial stuff. Everybody has to buy in, like what Spain, what makes Spain unique, like you mentioned, they could have probably scored another couple goals. I think the bigger part of the conversation is that, like, okay, even if Spain don't get the penalty, right? And,
Right.
and let's just say they don't go up 1-0.
Yeah.
Um, which, by the way, I mean, I think we can both agree, like that penalty kind of came out of nowhere. And
Well, it is a penalty. We can't.
no,
I
it was a
don't.
penalty. Well, I'm just
It
saying
was
in the sense that, like, not in the sense that it wasn't a foul. What I mean is that, like, you don't expect a cross like that to lead to, normally,
right.
it was just a bad foul. You know what I mean? Like, it was but
Yeah.
my point is that even if they don't go, and let's just say that they don't score in the first half, I think as much as Spain probably were the better side regardless, I still don't see a scenario where France would have scored at any point.
Yeah. I mean,
Spain really
Unai.
sucked the life out of them. What makes them so unique is that, like, they have the ability to defend, like all of these teams that have to defend their ass off to try to beat Spain, and they have the attacking ability to be able, you know what I mean? So it's like that's what makes them one of, if not the best team in the entire world, and we'll find out, I guess, on Sunday. But yeah, dude, you have to tip your cap, boys, too. Like they've given up one goal all tournament.
Yeah,
Like that's
that's an insane record.
you know, and they're gonna be hard to score, hard to beat, hard to score against. It really just comes down to, like, can they break you down and score? Because once Spain went up 1-0, it was done and dusted, dude. Like, they
Yeah.
sucked the living life out of them. Like, they have such a good ability to be able to control the tempo of the game. Like, if they want to just hold on to the ball and string together a bunch of passes, they can do that in a way that a lot of other nations can't.
Right.
And they also have the ability to defend.
Yeah. No, that back
So,
line was incredible. I mean, I
yeah.
can't remember. The only time I remember Unai Simon actually worried was when he went out of position and outside the box and he like kicked it to, I think it was Due, but Due hit it right towards Simone back in the box. But
Oh, yeah,
let's just say,
you could see the guys in the middle were going nuts there, like, "Why didn't you pass the ball?" Like,
right. But even so, let's just say Unai Simon was caught out of position and it goes past him. Kubasi and Laporte were ready to defend that.
well,
Like if
he's been really good too, by the way. The
yeah.
young, he's been really good too.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a Barcelona fan, so I see him every weekend.
Yeah, he's legit, like,
He's legit, man. I mean, I know people bash on him because of the high line, but that's not his fault. I mean, Hansi Flick likes to play that high line, and
yeah.
unfortunately, you're gonna get beat to it, and he's not gonna get the credit that he deserves. But him and Laporte, it reminds it's funny. It reminds me of when Barcelona had Inigo Martinez, and the commentators were saying this, where it's like it's a perfect pairing for the Spanish center backs, where you have a young rising center back coming in, and then you have a veteran left-footed defender to pair with him. It was like Inigo Martinez, because in that, I believe, it was 2024-2025 season, that was their pairing for Barcelona, and I mean, they almost made it to the Champions League final, and that's what Kubasi needs, is a leader like Laporte. And I mean, they held. To be honest, bro, I didn't really see Kylian touch the ball. He only
Yeah.
touched it for free kicks, and that is hard to do in itself.
Yeah. Look, man, I think a lot of like any narrative out there, look, we can only control our own conversations, but like, I really don't see it as a, I mean, dude, it's a semifinal of the World Cup. Like, it's not, if this is not, St. Kitts and Nevis or Trinidad and Tobago or something. I mean, no offense to these countries. I just mean in a in a
Yeah.
footballing sense. But like, this is Spain, dude. Like, I know France. Yes, I look. I admit I had France. I had Spain
You
originally, and then I
changed
had
your mind.
changed my mind, which is a lesson, to myself, and I always say, do everything the opposite of what I would do. So it's like, that's a prime example of that where, sometimes you just gotta roll with your gut. But yeah, you know what? I don't regret it. Look, I think France, it doesn't take anything away from how talented they are and how good those players are. You mentioned Rodri too. I mean, this was probably the worst I've seen Michael Olise play in a long time, and he still played pretty well. I'm not,
Yeah.
it wasn't the reason they lost or anything like that. He still made a couple of great passes here and there, but like, they had him in the middle of the pitch, and they made that tactical adjustment. I don't think it would have mattered who would have been in there. Rodri was on his game today. The whole team, like, it goes to show you, man. Like, again, sometimes it doesn't come down to who's the most talented team. It comes down to who's the best team. And Spain proved it today that they were the better team.
Yeah, man. I mean, defense wins championships. I mean,
Yeah, they proved that today.
it's the dumbest cliche thing you could say, but it's true. I mean, they made that midfield and forward line look like it's like AYSO soccer.
Yeah, look, I will say, in an alternate universe, if they don't get the penalty, maybe it stays 0-0 for a while, and maybe it's France who end up winning. But we don't live in that universe. We only live in the one where there was a penalty and Spain dominated from there. I mean, I don't think, once they went up 1-0, like I said, it was done and dusted, dude. And I think instead of making it, I think, look, there are two sides to every coin, and we'll talk about the French perspective, I'm sure. But I think it's important to highlight that this was almost less about France and more about Spain today, I feel like.
It is, yeah, and to be honest, I mean, look, the only time really France shot themselves in the foot was that Luka Digne foul, and
Yeah,
and it's kind of a weird ball that was crossed into him because it took a
yeah,
weird bounce, and he's a smaller guy. It's not like a
yeah.
Saliba or Upamecano.
I think he just assumed that he was gonna be able to get his foot to the ball, and I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
that he realized in the heat of the moment, like, I think it was just an honest, the human reaction, something that he probably, it was instinctual, like, and it just so happened that he caught Lamine, and it just so happened that he caught him in the penalty
But
box.
yeah, but the flip side would be is Lamine is smart because he
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, it was a
he
great play by
anticipated.
Lamine.
Yeah.
Lamine knew exactly what he was doing. Like, so that's what I'm saying. It's almost like, again, I guess what it is, like, it's less of a critique of the decision. It's more, I think, a credit to Lamine, who, by the way, like, Lamine was great today too. Like, all this stuff, like, he hasn't
Yeah.
been scoring goals. Like, you have to realize that this dude's been like triple teamed and he hasn't been fully healthy.
Yeah.
Like, context really matters. Today, he was,
He had a great game
even though he
actually.
didn't score necessarily, he was one of the best players. I mean, him and Rodri and the entire back line. And I mean, you go down the list. I mean, look, everybody on Spain was firing, and they did what they had to do. Um, and I mean, dude, they sucked the life out of France. I don't honestly, France didn't have a legitimate chance all match.
No, they
Maybe
didn't
outside of
really.
maybe one.
Yeah, right. Maybe just that Unai Simone error,
Yeah,
or maybe I think Dembele had like a 1-on-1 and he just hit it straight towards Unai Simone. That was
I mean,
probably their
yeah,
best chance.
they had no more than 3 chances the whole match.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You can count it, and it's funny because I'm
Oh,
like looking on their stats right now, and it says that uh, France had more shots on target than Spain, but
but that was also inflated by the end of the match in, like, the
right,
last, like, 5-10 minutes.
right, and the thing is, it's funny here. The shots on target for Spain was 2, so that means all their shots that they went on target were goals. So they're
Yeah,
clinical, and
and one of those was a penalty, so they literally only had 1 shot on target, and they scored.
yeah, and it was
But that
Pedro
was all they
Porro.
needed. That's all they needed. It doesn't matter how you do it. Like, look, it's not, this is not Dancing with the Stars, it doesn't have to be, it
A
doesn't have
10
to
out
be
of
it's not
10.
a beauty contest. Exactly. It's not entertainment. They're not here to entertain people. They're not magicians it's not a movie. It's the World fucking Cup, man. It's a competition. It doesn't matter how you do it. If you win, you win.
Yeah, man,
Um,
I agree, and I would have been interested to see how the game would have played out had Saliba stayed healthy the whole entire game. I
yeah,
you
that's a
know
big blow too. We haven't mentioned that. That was a big blow. That's a bummer because he's one of the best players in the world.
Easily,
Uh,
yeah,
that's a big blow too, especially because on that second goal that Spain scored, the only shot on target that they had, that was a defensive lapse that
yeah,
great run by Pedro Porro though to, just like Lamine put himself in a good position. It's the same thing. It's like in basketball, like when you crash the glass.
yeah, right,
Like
exactly.
sometimes if you just put yourself in a position, good things happen.
Yes. No, I agree,
Um,
and it's not like, oh, who got subbed in? LaCroix.
oh, look,
It's not like
yeah.
it's not like LaCroix played bad at all, but it's just, does that second goal happen had Saliba stayed there? I that
Maybe. I mean, just what happened, Dewey kinda got caught,
yeah,
in a second, and then, you know, uh, they just found a gap, and it was a great pass and a great finish, and like you said, that and the penalty is all they needed, and, Spain, they have the ability to suck the life out of you, where, again, a lot of teams have they're able to keep you, mitigated, like what teams have been trying to do to Spain, but that's because they're parking the bus. It's 10 behind the ball. It's the Jose Mourinho special, the Carlos Queiroz express. Like, you're going
yes.
choo choo. Like, but what Spain can do is what makes them so good is that they can do that, but in a way where they have the majority of the ball at the same time. And it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you can't
That's
get
what
you
makes it.
can't get a touch. I
Yeah.
know, man.
It
You
it's
can't.
it's it that's what makes them so dangerous is they can do both. You can't get a touch. They dominated the ball. France couldn't do anything. They had them in tactical hell.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny towards, I think it was like towards like the 60th or 70th minute. And Didier was instructing them to press, and they were pressing, man. There was a few times where there was a couple close ones when they were playing out of the back, and it's funny, they make it look so easy. They just pass it to
Yeah.
the right person at the right time, and you can tell once Spain got out of that little hole in the back, they France was just like put their hands up. They're like, how did they get out of here? We literally went full speed, slide tackle, and they still got out of the back like it was nothing.
Yeah. And you know what? I think France probably would be the first to tell you, like, this was, this not this is probably one of those things where I know, again, we don't wanna, look, I think it was just a tactical masterclass, and, we'll get the Didier side of the equation, but I think in many ways, as much as we can also talk about Didier, we should also talk about, a guy like De La Fuente who,
Yeah,
at a certain point, it's like the guy hasn't lost, I know they have, obviously, again, they have a ton of great players, but you gotta give some credit where it's due, like, to the players, to him,
yeah,
to everybody, like, just the way that they're able to do it, like, and again, it's a reminder sometimes that, like, these tacticalities and these little nuances really do make a difference. Like, as much as, we love to sell the stars, not we as in us, but like we as in,
the media and
traditional,
FIFA.
yeah,
Yeah,
like, look, it's easy to sell, but, we're not here to sell tickets and entertainment. Again, this is not, it's not the circus. This is not a TV show. this is not a stand-up comedy special. This is the World fucking Cup, dude. Like, I think it was a great reminder of that today, where it's like it doesn't have to be pretty, it doesn't have to be sexy, but at the same time, like, let's not also talk about Spain as if they're not Spain, dude. Like, this is the Spanish national team, like what you mentioned earlier. We shouldn't be surprised.
Right. I mean, bro, they won the Euros. They beat France last time in Nations League. They lost to Portugal, so be it. But I mean, this is considering where De La Fuente and the Spain national team was from 2014 till now, it's been a disaster with what's his face? Not before, it was before Luis Enrique. Julian. It was with Lopetetti. That was a disaster. And then with Luis Enrique, I mean, it was an interesting project that they tried to work on. But with the Spanish FA, I mean, I had to give them credit. I mean, you probably had thousands of coaches lined up for your next coach after Luis Enrique departs, and you went with the guy that was with the youth team. And funny enough, obviously he knows Lamine and Pau. Those guys were through the youth system, and he knows them very well, and he trusts them. And there's plenty of other players that probably went through that system as well that Luis de la Fuente knows. And so, considering where Spain has been from 2014 to now, it's been a success, and I'm glad to see that too, because I know they've won the World Cup, but it's nice to see another team kind of go into the final. Not to say that it wouldn't be as exciting had France advanced, because regardless, whoever's coming into the final, whether it's France, Spain, England, Argentina, it's going to be a great final. But it's nice to see Spain back into the top tiers as they should be. I mean, they have a rich history. When you saw the game, I mean, you saw all the stars come out for Spain, where it was Iker Casillas was there, Xavi was there, Carlos Puyol was there, Sergio Ramos. So they're a very talented nation, and for me, I'm happy to see them back to where they should be, because they deserve it. I mean, they've played the best football in terms of playing field and tactics to this date.
Yeah, look, credit where it's due, man. We're spreading all kinds of propaganda today, but it's a reminder to always go with your gut over propaganda. I think
Always, man.
That there are a lot of people that'll try to sell you on something, but just because don't let them sell you on it rather than you agree with them. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, man, I do want to ask any concluding thoughts on this match before we flip it to England, Argentina.
I mean, I'm sure Malik will get to talk to you more about the French side, but I'm interested to see.
Well, let's get your thoughts on the French too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see where they go. I mean, keep in mind, the French still have to play Saturday, no matter what. So this is not anybody's last game. I know it doesn't matter anymore, but this is not Didier's last game. So, I mean, credit to Didier. I mean, Malik, has a love-hate relationship with him. I always tell him, had Didier coach Mexico, I would open him with open arms. He's a World Cup champion. He won you a World Cup. Considering now that you see how hard it is to win a World Cup, I mean, he's done. I know they have a generational team, and he probably could have done more, but at least he got you that title in 2018. And to me, he's done a great job. I don't know if he's just going to retire now, or if he's going to be like a somewhere in the FA or the France FA Association and be like a director or whatever, or oversee player development. But I mean, good for him. Great career in managing and as a player himself. So credit to him. And if the rumors are true, where it's Zidane, let's see where this team goes for 2028 Euros. Yeah, they have a young team, man. I mean, I'm looking at their starting roster. Their oldest player is Luca Digne at 32, and then the next two oldest is Magic Mike at 31 and Rabiot at 31. So these guys will be right back into the fold again next Euros and next Euro Cup, and they're not going to go anywhere. They're going to be a threat. They will probably be the favorites again for Euros and the World Cup in 2026, pending any injuries. So they have a bright future, and they'll be back. Keep your head up high. French fans, they'll be back. And with Zidane, we'll see. Maybe he's won 3 Champions Leagues in a row for Real Madrid. No other manager has done that, so maybe he can translate that same success, to the French national side, and he knows how to deal with personalities and egos. And the French side has a lot of egos, but Didier was able to calm them down, and so let's see what Zizou does.
Yeah, look, I think like you said, they're not going anywhere. They still have a lot of young, talented players that are not even probably at the peak of what they're going to be able to do. Like you mentioned, if it is in fact Zidane, I think the obvious question. I mean, I don't think I'm really going out on a limb here, but I just think, the first thing, when we talk about Didier, we always talk about, like you said, it's the age old question in any sport. There are some coaches that are good enough to get you as close to it as possible, and sometimes they'll win it, but they might not win it all the time.
Right.
And there are some who can, like with Didier, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Where yes, you do have to be thankful to the fact that they at least won one, and these last 2 World Cups have shown you how hard it is to win multiple, let alone
Yeah.
one. But you've come as close as you can, to winning multiple. You won one, and. But yeah, look, they're not going anywhere. I think the obvious question though is just going to be, it does it always goes, not to make it obvious, but like okay, we use the New York Knicks as an example, right? Like, Tom Thibodeau was able to get them to the Eastern Conference Finals and be really competitive. They fired him.
Yeah.
A year later, they win.
Yeah.
But for every time that happens, you have other organizations in the past and other sports where, I look at like Nebraska in college football way back when, like when they had Pelini, they would win like 9, 10 games. And Nebraska, one of the most historically great college football programs, especially before our heyday.
Right. Yeah.
And so that was a passionate fan base that was like, "Nah, you know what? Like 9, 10 games not good enough." And they fired him, and you know what? They've been mediocre to ass ever since. So it's like it can always go so many different directions. Now, obviously, with France, they have so much talent that it would be really hard to make it worse. But
it's happened, man. It's look
happened.
at Germany.
Yeah.
Look at Germany.
There's never a guarantee, and that's why I'll be interested to see, because one of the easy critiques with Didier has always been, and I've been one of those big critics off the record, on the record, and we'll have that conversation throughout the next couple of days and weeks and months and years. Like, I think 2 things can be true at once. Like, you give credit to him, you can put him in a position to where they had a chance. But I also think the critique is that with a team as talented as that, you should never get as tactically outclassed in a big match as what happened today, where there's no reason why France, with the talent that they have, should not have been the team trying to also equally dominate the ball like Spain were trying to do.
Right. That's not their game.
That's not their game. And that's because they haven't had that tactically drilled into them in the way that Spain have.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. One last point of when I was watching the game, I think at halftime when it was starting, they had like a little like stat sheet where it said France has never won a game where they've been down by a goal or whatever it is at halftime. I think
I saw that.
Yeah, right. It was like they have drew 1 and then they had lost like 13 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like 11, 12, 13, something like that.
Yeah, it was like a ridiculous number. I'm like, how interesting.
Yeah, I think it was 11, but 11, 12, 13. Point being, yeah, they never won. Yeah, I saw that stat. You know what? Like I said, it's just like we talked about. It's one of those things where once Spain went up 1-0, you never got the feeling that France were going to be able to get a goal,
Yeah,
even before Spain made it 2-0.
yeah.
There was
No,
never any inclination that, it felt like Spain just kinda had them in like if it was a game of chess, they were just they had them beat. Like, sometimes you
you
gotta
know,
tip your cap. And
yeah,
that's not to say that France can't beat them in the future,
right, and it will happen for sure. There's no way where Spain can go undefeated versus France in this type of run.
but that would be what we see with Zidane. Like, do they tactically make adjustments in ways that they weren't able to do under Didier? And if they do make those adjustments, do they maximize their ceiling, or does it backfire and the bottom drops out? I guess we don't really know. My argument has always been that I think if you play your tactical cards right, nobody should be able to beat France.
Right.
But today was a reminder that games are not played on paper. They're played, it's not, I'm not trying to say that to be corny or cliche, but like you said, defense wins championships. Like, there's a reason why they play the games. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah.
Now the question is, with a new manager, can Spain, not Spain, France, can France get to that, you know, level of tacticality that we're talking about? Because it look against Morocco and Paraguay and Sweden and all these other matches they played, they won. So it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
so those critiques maybe don't get had until a day like today, but a day like today reminds you of why those critiques existed in the first place.
Right. And 2 points I will make there. First, the whole game, kind of like what you said, when they were down 1-0, it felt like they were never going to score a goal. Honestly, it looked like France had rocks in their pockets. Like if they just felt every time 2 steps too slow for Spain in whatever shape or way, and not just on the field, but also tactically as well, where Luis de la Fuente was always 2 steps ahead, and he brought in the right guys at the right time, whether it was, Ferran Torres, Pedri, so forth. And then the other point that I bring up is that, going to the future with France, Zizou, he's very offensive minded. He knows the Real Madrid system. He dealt with Ronaldo, Bale, Benzema. He's gonna have the same kind of idea coming into the France team. I fully expect him to change the way they approach games and be more
Oh, honestly,
ball
yeah.
dominant. Yeah. And not
Yeah,
play on a counter or wait for an error by the opposing team to
yeah,
score.
yeah, exactly. They got dominated in a way that they should not be dominated, and Zizou comes in, and like you said, they should change that shit.
Absolutely. I mean, the talent is there. We all see it. We all know it. Everyone, when we filled out our bracket with Malik, everyone or a majority of people chose France to win it. Everyone else can see it. But like you said, it's not one on paper, it's one on the field. And Luis de la Fuente did a great job. And
Yeah,
we will see him continue on Sunday on what will be another great matchup tomorrow with England and Argentina, where, you know, I'll start it off here. This game is going to be ugly, man. And I mean ugly in terms of there's going to be fights. Fully expect yellows to be flying. A player sent off, maybe even two. These two nations have history behind them. They do not like each other. And it's funny that Messi has never faced the English national team in his career. So I, coming into tomorrow's game, I fully expect it to be a much high scoring game by both teams. And I'll give you my prediction. I think Argentina will win 3-2. I don't know if it's going to be an overtime or not, or in 90 minutes, but I expect Argentina to win. But it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be a bloodbath. And again, it's going to come down to more of the head coach's decision with Scaloni and Thomas Tuchel. And so I'm excited to see it. I'm interested to see their starting lineups. I'll start on the Argentina side with their starting forward with Messi. I don't know who they're going to play, honestly. Now with Lautaro, starting to kind of heat up, but then Julian made that amazing goal, man, to send them to the semifinal. And it's like, if you're Scoloni, if I'm him, I'm choosing Julian slightly, but I could totally see him go with Lautaro. And then in the midfield, you've heard me on record where he's just gonna stick to his guys. And you know what? Kind of like if this theme of this or this episode is you guys stick to your guts, I guess. And he's gonna roll with McAllister, Paredes, and Rodrigo de Paul. May not be the right decision, but that's who's gonna roll with. And on the English side, there's big question marks on their wings, honestly. Who do you start at right wing? Do you start Saka or do you start Madueke? On the left side, do you start Gordon or do you kind of switch it up with Rashford? And then at right back, big question there. I mean, is Reece James fully fit? I don't know. This is going to be, there's no defense going to play tomorrow, unlike today. Today was very defensive heavy. Tomorrow, I fully expect goals to be flying, punches maybe to be thrown, controversy for sure. I'm excited for it. I'm excited. And I love Tuchel because he's very animated. You can think back to when he was in Chelsea and Antonio Conte was with Tottenham, I believe, and they had that handshake after, and and they looked at each other in the eye, or they looked at each other in the eyes, and then Tuchel's like, "Look at me in the eyes," and he's doing the fingers to his eyes. Scaloni's not that animated, but Tuchel will be, so I can't wait to see it. Jude has been on fire, so he's been their magician, their ace in the hole. So I fully expect Jude to score as well. I think I heard on ESPN FC, whenever you see Jude in the box and he gets the ball, I hate to admit it because he plays for Real Madrid, he always looks like he's going to score. No matter where he is or what he's doing, he just finds a way to hit it into the back of the net. And, this midfield for Argentina, even with Enzo, is just going to give up a goal for sure to him. But I'm excited. It's going to be a superstar clash, and I expect it to be an Argentina-Spain final. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, you know what, man? I think it's gonna be, like you said, it's gonna be a really fun semifinal. I mean, if it's not one of the best atmospheres of the whole tournament, then we failed as a society, because it should be a rocking atmosphere. I think, yeah, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets a little chippy. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being a little bit maybe on the lower scoring side of things as well. That wouldn't surprise me. I think it wouldn't shock me if it's one of those things where, as much as I could see it being a goals fest, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it's 0-0 and we're 80 minutes in, or it's 1-0. That sort of deal. I think it's going to be, I think both sides are. It's going to be a great tactical clash. We
Yeah.
talked about the tacticality of De La Fuente and Didier, Spain and France. Like, you've got an Argentina side that want to score goals, and they have scored goals against pretty much everybody they've played, not just at this tournament, but for a while now. Like, they know who they are, and they know what they're
Yes.
good at.
Uh-huh.
Um, and like you mentioned with Spain, where okay, is Lamine out there, tracking back every single, like is Messi out there, doing a whole lot defensively?
Of
Not
course not.
necessarily,
No.
but in the same way that Spain, in the same way where maybe on paper you take France over Spain, on paper, you take England over Argentina.
Yes,
The one
100. I
difference
agree.
the
Yeah.
one difference in this, though, and this is what I'm interested to see how it plays out. This is why I like to talk. It's good to talk about it before and after the fact.
Right.
Um, and one of the things that I'll be fascinated to see is in this match, again, Argentina know how they want to play. And I think with Tuchel, you mentioned Malik. I know Malik, loves Tuchel. Um, I will be interested to see how Thomas Tuchel approaches this match. Does England set up in a way perhaps similarly to what France did today and maybe try to defend and catch Argentina out on the counter? Or does England try to do the opposite of what France did? And does England try to dominate a little bit more of the ball and go for it a little bit and try to break down Argentina in a different way? That I think will be the fascinating part of it. Um, I think it would not surprise me to see either one necessarily, but I think that will be the difference in the match. I think because I'm interested to see your thoughts on this. If it's a higher scoring match, who does it favor?
It's gonna. I mean, based off this tournament, it's been Argentina. I mean, they've scored more. Theoretically, they've scored more goals, I guess.
Yeah,
So
so like, look, England have scored goals, especially in the last, in the last three matches that they've scored multiple goals in each of those matches,
right,
but they haven't necessarily dominated the ball or maybe not dominated the ball, but they haven't dominated chances
right.
in a way that on paper might suggest.
I totally agree,
Like
bro.
against Norway, they beat Norway, but it wasn't like they dominated Norway.
Right, and they and
They beat Mexico, but they beat Mexico tactically where they sat back a lot and they absorbed pressure, and that was look, it worked out. And then against Congo, Congo sat back, and it took them a while to be able to break down Congo.
yeah, no, I this is where I agree with you. I don't know how Thomas Tuchel is going to go into this because England have the roster to dominate possession. They have great
Yeah.
midfielders.
And they
They
have
have
the talent to be able to break down Argentina's back line and even if, and to be able to put 2 or 3 past them.
yeah,
They
it's
have that ability.
absolutely, man. I agree. But to go on the theme of this episode, I think he's going to go with his gun. He's just going to play on the counter. I mean, that's
Yeah, I
honestly
think
what.
that's what's gonna happen as well. I think England will I agree. I think if I had to predict, now we'll see how it plays out, but if I
Right.
had to, again, gun to my head, how do you see it playing out? I think England will try to play it on a counter. Now the only thing is, will they be able to execute that game plan, which they've been able to do that. They have been able to score the goals,
Yeah.
against Mexico and against
Right.
Norway.
I
Um,
I totally agree.
well, granted, they had a bit more of the ball against Norway than they did against Mexico, and that was also a bit tactical both ways. But look, I think the big, not to dumb it down, but I think it really kind of comes down to who executes their strengths better and it covers up their weaknesses better, essentially. You know,
Yeah.
uh, like not to dumb it down, but I just think like it won't surprise me if there are goals scored, but then it just comes down to who does that really favor.
You
But it
know,
also, yeah,
yeah,
look,
no,
so you got Argentina. You think Argentina's going to win?
I think so because if it's going the way I think it is, where it's just gonna be a goal heavy fest. I mean, they've just been not blowing people out, but they've just been hitting all cylinders with their goals like crazy. And I know England have the a great attack. Don't get me wrong; they have probably one of the best all forwards ever, with Kane, Saka, Rashford, Rogers, Gordon, Eze, Watkins, Madueke, even Tony on the bench. Those are all great. Those guys could easily be 15 plus scoring guys in their respective leagues easily. But if it comes down to tactics and in terms of heart, I give England the credit that they deserve on how they went out or how they beat Mexico at the Azteca. They showed heart there, but this Argentina team is ready to die for Messi. I'm not joking you. These guys will run off an edge, cliff off the edge, run through a wall just for him to succeed. So while they're very vulnerable in the back with Lazaro and Cudi Romero and Molina and Tagliafico, somehow they always come up to put it together in the last 20 minutes, and they stick it together. And I don't know, for me, it's close. This is a tough one, honestly. It wouldn't be shocking if England go through and beat Argentina, because it truly comes down to the manager and their substitutions, honestly, with Scaloni and Tuchel.
Yeah, dude, to be honest with you, man, like I feel like these two sides, like it's just one of those things where, in a one-off, anything really, like if they played each other 10 times, I think they'd probably split 5-5, maybe 6-4. Like it would be pretty even.
Right.
It'll just come down, I'll be interested to see, to be honest with you, this is one of, to be honest, I think what I'm interested to see is the crowd breakdown, because in both of these nations matches, they tend to have the majority of the fan support. Against each other, is it 50-50? Like, or, maybe it ends up being maybe skewed one way or one side is louder. Like that, I think, is another factor that, has nothing to do with tactics or anything. But like you mentioned with Argentina, like, and with England, these are two passionate countries that, much like the players on the pitch, like they would die for the result as well. Which is why I think it would be a shame if it's not a rocking atmosphere, because it should be the loudest atmosphere of the tournament. It should be.
Yeah, man. I honestly, it'll probably be like 55-45. Whoever, it doesn't matter who it's majority.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine as well. But you know what, man? I think it's fascinating to me because this is France and Spain all over again. Because I picked Spain originally.
Who is your prediction?
I picked I've been picking Argentina throughout. The more I've thought about it in the last 24 hours, I kind of want to take England. But if today's episode is any indication, I'd rather go with my gut and be wrong than flip flop. So I'm going to go with Argentina.
What's the final score, though?
Final score? I think it's going to be, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it's like a 1-0, 2-1 sort of deal. I think my honest prediction, regardless of result, is I think that England is going to be able to defend Argentina in a way that will be the most effective that anybody's been able to defend against them.
Right.
But I think that Argentina have, kind of like just that I'm not going to bet against them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to bet against Argentina. If England win, I won't be shocked. It won't be like you were saying earlier, like Spain beat France. It's not like this is some, magical upset. Like, how the hell did that? I mean, dude, it's fucking Spain, man. They're the European champions. They haven't lost in forever. It's not an upset. It's just they were the better team. So it's like, look, if England go out and England win, tip of the cap. It's not like England are a bunch of bums out there. But I think in the same way that it doesn't surprise me that Spain beat France, it won't surprise me if if Argentina beat England. The only difference is I will not change I had Spain and then I went with France and I stuck with France. I will not change from Argentina. I will take Argentina. I think Argentina will make it through, and we'll get a Spain-Argentina final. Um, but again, it's a semifinal. Anything can happen. But yeah, if you put a gun to my head, I'm right. It's the theme of the episode. Gut over propaganda, man. I'm going with Argentina.
Yeah, man. This one, I'm telling you, this one was harder for me to predict than the other one. I don't know. Like it's just these two
Oh
are
yeah,
more. They're so different, but they're so similar in many ways. Where there's a lot of holes in their team, but they just somehow piece it together.
yeah,
One game at it each time, and they have so many options. And not only in the attack, but in the defense as like subs. I mean, we haven't even touched upon the right back issue for England. I mean, who's going to be attacking that right back piece? It's going to be Julian or Lautaro. And so I fully expect whoever's starting between those two, they have to attack him like crazy, that right back, because it's
yeah.
their weakness.
I think actually though, I think England will hold up at right back a little bit. It was Konsa who got the start last time out against Norway, and he's a good player, man. I think that's why I think it's gonna be like it won't surprise me if it's chippy and it's cagey and it's 0-0, 75, 80 minutes in or 1-0. But it also wouldn't surprise me if it's 3-2 at halftime. But I think
Yeah,
at the same time, I think that, in my I'm not gonna go against my gut of what I think is going to happen in the result,
yeah,
but I will go with my recent thought process of I think England will be able to defend Argentina well and mitigate the number of chances. Now, whether that correlates to the number of goals, we'll find out. But I think it will be a match with a lot of fouls. I think it will be England absorbing pressure, trying to hit Argentina on the counter. I expect that part of it. It's just a
easily.
matter of the goals or not, but I think the chances will be a bit more limited than so, like, whether it plays out that way, I think I'm confident that it won't be like, PSG and Bayern, or it could be like
It
PSG and
could
Bayern.
be, yeah, it could
It
be,
could be. It very well could be. It could be England and Argentina. They're going back and forth, and it's like a pinball machine, and they're going ping
or
pong, boom, 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 boom.
yeah,
Or it could be a little
Arsenal
bit more
Atletico.
goofy and what happened?
It could be Arsenal and Atleti on the other side of the
Yeah,
bracket.
exactly. It could be either one, and neither one would necessarily shock me. And I think that's what makes it so hard to predict because I can make the argument for you both ways.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah, I'm not going to go against my gut of the prediction of Argentina. I'm gonna rock with that. I'm gonna stick with that. And if England win, I won't be devastated. There are some predictions I kick myself, dude. Whether it's on the record or off the record, whether it's making a bracket or something trivial like whatever it is, or you just make a prediction. Sometimes, like again today with Spain and France, like I've been rocking with France even though again, originally I picked Spain, I was rocking with France. 6 hours ago, I thought France would win, and I was pretty confident, and then you watch it play out, and you're like, man, you knew it was coming. So this one, I'd be okay with getting wrong because, like you said, it's such a hard matchup to predict because they're both really good teams. Like this could be a final. It
yeah.
could be.
Yes.
Just
Easily.
like Spain and France could have been a final. These are the four best teams in the world. It just happened that this is the semifinal. It could have easily been France and England in the semifinal and Spain and Argentina in the semifinal. But instead we have it that played out this way. I can't wait for it, dude. It's gonna be a treat of a match. Um you mentioned Jude and Harry Kane. I mean, dude, these guys are spectacular players. I think with England, you mentioned it. It really comes down to can they get it right on the wings?
Yeah.
Can they hold up? defensively. I think England will be able to hold up defensively in terms of being able to mitigate chances. That's what I'm confident in. But I'm betting on Argentina because I think Argentina, it almost feels like Argentina are inevitable.
Are you trying to say it's scripted?
No, I'm not trying to say it's scripted. It just feels like no, I'm not trying to say it's scripted, but I feel like they like again, okay, they might not like against Cape Verde or Egypt, like yeah, they faced adversity. Against Switzerland, it was a competitive match, and up until the red card, and then they sucked them out in extra time. Like I just feel like in a different way to how Spain at a certain I feel the same way about Argentina that I do about Spain,
Yeah. No. Yeah.
but it's just it comes out differently.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. I
Or
totally
maybe
agree.
it's like I look at it, like it's like a Venn diagram. Like I look at it where France and Argentina I look at in similar lenses, but I also look at Argentina and Spain in similar lenses. And then Spain and France are on the opposite ends of that a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
I
yeah, I think it's going to be a great match. It's going to be competitive. It's going to be a treat. And I can't wait to recap it as well and see who ends up playing Spain in the championship on
yeah,
Sunday
man.
and who's playing France in the third place match.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it's going to be a great game. Whoever faces Spain, nonetheless, who if it's Argentina or England, it's going to be a banger game.
So your
I'm
prediction is a lot of goals, though. See, what's your score prediction?
Yeah, I say 3-2 Argentina.
Is
Yeah.
it does it go in extra 30? Does it go to extra time, or does
See
someone
that?
win it?
See that? Yeah, that was the thing. I think I said when we started this transition to England, Argentina. I think that was the hardest one. Was do I say it in 90 minutes or do I say it in 120? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 120. I think it's gonna go the distance. I think someone scores that third goal. I don't know who it's gonna be, but I think someone scores that third goal for Argentina in that last 30-minute extra time.
Yeah, I could see that. I could even yeah, it could be easily one of those matches where maybe for 90 minutes, maybe they see each other through. It's like 0-0, 1-1, and then they
Yeah,
go to extra time, and then the floodgates open because they're both going for it, and they don't want to go to penalties, and it ends up like 3-2 or some shit like that.
exactly.
Also, wouldn't surprise me if it goes to penalties. It really wouldn't. Like I think
Now,
this is the hardest matchup of the tournament, in my opinion, to really get a gauge because I could see it going. But okay, what was your question? Now what?
now, if it does go to penalties, I will say Argentina has the edge because I trust Emmy more than Pickford in a penalty shootout. Emmy has those mind games that just worked. It worked versus France last year or last 4 years ago. He has those mind games, and for me, Pickford is always like a mistake waiting to happen. It almost happened in the Mexico game where he made a mistake. I'm sure it's happened in other games, or even in Norway, probably he made a small mistake or he was close to. If it goes penalties, I still give the edge to Argentina.
Okay, yeah, I would say I do like both keepers. I like Pickford. I think he's always been one of the better keepers in the world. I like him personally, but yeah, Emi Martinez is always, in a big game. That's the kind of guy that I feel like you bet on. He rises to the occasion. It wouldn't surprise me if, to be honest with you, I think even regardless of a shootout, I think this is one of those where goalkeeping is going to be a huge factor in how this plays out and which keeper
Yeah,
is able to because there will be chances, and with both of these sides, they don't need a ton of chances to be able to score goals. Kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, like it might not have like 30. It could, but like either way, when you've got the attacking talent that both sides have, they will have chances to score. You would imagine it's Emmy Martinez and Pickford. I could definitely foresee a scenario where the tide in this match shifts between which keeper is more on his game, is able to make some big saves,
yeah,
control the pace of the game, all those different things. I think that'll be a big factor as well, regardless of penalties.
I agree. I think whoever comes out with the biggest or the better, not better, the bigger saves, I think that's the difference maker right there for either side on
Yeah.
who's winning
Pickford
it.
had some great saves against Mexico.
He did, man. He man, bro, they were so close. Trust me, they were so
yeah,
close to scoring
so
that third
but then
one.
yeah, look, Emi Martinez, like that's one of those guys that's hard to bet against him in goal. Like even if he himself is giving up a goal or two,
Right.
it just feels like, especially for we talk about it a lot. Like some keepers when they play for the national team, like it's like they get like a boost.
Yes, for sure.
And he's one of those guys who happens to be a great club goalkeeper, and he's also really good with the national team.
Yeah, man. I mean, for Villa, he's been. I remember when they're in the Champions League. Was it last year? He came up with some big saves for them to get
Oh,
them
yeah.
to
Dude, he's a
the
great keeper,
quarters.
man. He's rock solid. He's really good. Like you're happy if he's your keeper.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's funny. Not like this will happen ever, or at least unless Emmy gets injured. But they have a great backup in Musso. He plays for Atletico Madrid, and I saw him in La Liga action. Man, this guy could save everything possible because in the Champions League quarterfinal when it was Barcelona Atleti, I think Oblak had lost his starting position to Musso because Musso was just saving everything to keep Atletico in the game and advancing them to eventually face Arsenal. So not
Yeah.
saying it will unless there's an injury, but if that ever does happen, they have a great backup too.
Yeah, I mean, never say never. I mean, look at what happened with Belgium against Spain the other day.
Yeah.
Never say never. But I will say, on the subject of Pickford too, like, he's a pretty good club keeper too, man, for Everton. Like,
Yeah.
all the years that they were battling relegation, I think he was probably in many ways, I think him and the home support that they had were probably the two biggest reasons of why they were able to avoid relegation for that couple of year stretch. So look, two really good keepers, but um, yeah, look, I'm gonna rock with Argentina, but it's one of those things where it wouldn't shock me by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, if England get it done. But any concluding thoughts on this one before we put a bow on it?
I mean, it was a great. Honestly, I really do think football/soccer won today. I mean, I'm giving France credit. They had a great run of their tournament, and I mean, Spain just played the game so much better. Not so much better, but they just played it today so much better than France, and it was beautiful to watch. And tomorrow, I hope to say the same thing, where it's going to be a good close game, and there'll be fireworks for sure. And I can't wait
Yeah,
for
gotta
Spain to
get
win it on
gotta get you to
Sunday.
come. We gotta come get you. Recap that and preview the final for sure.
Yeah, man. I'm ready for it. If it's Argentina, Spain, I got nothing to lose there.
There you go. You're halfway to an all Vince propaganda extravaganza like never before, man.
Exactly, man. Because either Lamine gets his first World Cup, and that's beautiful, or Messi goes out with a second, and it's a beautiful thing to say. I mean, he already is the goat, but this just adds more fuel to it.
All right, man. Well, this was fun, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to make this happen. Uh, you got one victory lap in. We'll see in the next 24 hours if you're taking two victory laps.
We'll see, man.
Uh,
It's not going to be easy. This one's a tougher one to predict.
all right, man. Well, you know what? Best of luck to you tomorrow. You're 1 for 2, so we'll see if you go 2 for 2, man. And if you do, we might have to raise a glass to you. I mean, we'll have to do it regardless, but we'll have to raise 2 glasses. I have to raise 2 glasses to you.
If it is Argentina, Spain, let's get a lottery ticket, man.
Hey, there you go, man. There you go. And we'll use that to buy a team.
Absolutely. Wrexham, baby.
Wrexham, yeah, Wrexham. Buy Wrexham specifically.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh man. All right, brother. This was fun, man. Appreciate you as always. Till next time, man.
Likewise. Yeah, likewise. Well, can't wait to hear tonight's episode with Malik. Good luck.
All right, yeah, looking forward to it. We had one end of the the human emotion spectrum, and now very shortly we're gonna get Malik, and we'll get the other side of the coin. Looking forward to it. So thank you to you, and ahead of time, shout out to Malik. All much love, and then you mentioned Fadil earlier. Knock on wood, we're gonna get him on very shortly as well. Uh, lots to dive into with him as well. So looking forward to it all, man. And we'll have to get it with the four of us and all the different combinations.
Absolutely, man. All right,
All
everyone.
right.
Take care.
Cheers, bro. Yeah, you too, man.